Welcome to the Crunch McDabbles Show. I'm your host, Crunch McDabbles. This is the only show certified nerdified for all your Pathfinder 2nd Edition needs. Today's show, Debuffing Monster AC. Pathfinder 2 is pretty tight on the rules. Because of this, even the slightest, smallest advantage can be a pretty big advantage. A +1 here and a +2 there can actually make a huge difference. And since we already looked at increasing your bonuses to hit, we can add even more to this advantage by also simultaneously decreasing the monster's armor class. We have two main penalties we're working with to decrease the monster AC, and those are circumstance penalties and status penalties. Circumstance penalties to armor class are the easiest. The flat-footed condition gives a -2 circumstance penalty to armor class, and you can give this condition to a monster simply by moving into a flank. It's that easy. If you can brave your way to the opposite side of a monster, you can make them flat-footed. They have to divide their defensive attention in two directions, and instantly they have a -2 penalty to armor class. There are other ways to make monsters flat-footed too, so we can just put attack in that and say, get your circumstance penalty to a monster AC whenever you can, wherever you can, and however you can. But we want to debuff these monsters even further. This is where status penalties come into play. Status penalties are added to circumstance penalties and subtract the enemy's armor class even further. So if we want to take our game to the next level, we're going to have to find some good ways to get these. Some status penalties are given directly as status penalties to armor class. Demonic blood magic from the sorcerer, for example. If your spell hits, you can opt to give the target a -1 status penalty to its armor class. Champions have a few of these too. A champion can lay on hands against an undead. On a failed basic fortitude save, they give it a -2 status penalty to its armor class for 1 round. So not bad. With the flank, that would be 1 round of -4 armor class. Conversely, if you had a champion with some corrupted morals and they had touch of corruption instead of lay on hands, they could do the same thing to a living creature instead of an undead. And there's one consumable item that can give a direct status penalty to AC too. The Balise Feather is a level 12 item which costs 400 gold pieces for 1 use. As a free action, when you deal damage to a creature you've seen commit an evil act. I guess that's kind of specific, but it's a free action, so we like that. The creature must make a DC 29 will save or take a -2 status penalty to its AC, saving throws, and reduce its resistances by 5. So that's a decent little item worth investing in for one of your holier-than-thou party members. So those are the direct methods just to give a status penalty to AC, but there are indirect methods too, by giving them a condition. The first condition, the weakest one we're going to look at, but hey, we'll take whatever penalties we can get. It's the condition fatigued. Fatigue gives a -1 status penalty to AC. The Oracle Focus spell, Interstellar Void from the Cosmos Mystery, will make a target fatigued for as long as the effect persists. And a Witch with the Curse of Death Focus spell for those Lesson of Death witches, even on a Fortitude save success, it's still going to be fatigued for 1 round, and much worse on failures and critical failures. The effect lasts longer, so not a bad use of a focus point there. But fatigued is minor leagues. It's only -1. So step up to the next level with the Clumsy condition. Clumsy affects dexterity, which affects armor class and reflex saves, and the penalty is whatever value of Clumsy they have. So we can potentially get higher penalties than -1 if we can get them to have a higher value of Clumsy. A 10th level monk, for example, can throw a grab to restrained creature in a sleeper hold with a single athletics action check. On a success, it will make the target clumsy 1 until the start of their next turn. And at 10th level, a ruffian rogue can take vicious debilitations to make a target clumsy 1 until the end of your next turn with the debilitating strike, which simply requires hitting a flat-footed creature and dealing damage. And at level 15, rogues get double debilitation, letting them add 2 conditions. All this makes ruffian rogues great debuffers in the party and giving players at least one good reason not to take the thief racket. So at least there's one reason. And I'm not really sure if there's others, but at least there's that one. Several poisons can make targets clumsy, and they're especially great options against low fortitude enemies. At first level, giant centipede poison can be added to a weapon, and if the weapon damages, it gives the poison effect. If the poison advances to level 3, it gets clumsy 1. For 4 gold pieces, it's not bad at level 1. And at level 5, hunting spider venom, it's also an injury poison. It adds clumsy 1 now at stage 2, and it goes up to clumsy 2 at stage 3, so it's a little better. A little more money and a little higher level, but clumsy a little faster. And then at level 7, giant wasp venom. It adds clumsy 1 right at stage 1 and clumsy 2 at stage 2. It's an injury poison too. It costs 55 gold pieces, but it's a pretty good way to debuff a monster once you hit level 7. Here's an interesting one. How about this one? When choosing a weapon, do you ever consider the spear? How cool is a spear fighter, piercing enemies from behind his shield like they stepped out of the 300 movie, or stabbing things at range? A spear's critical specialization effect adds in clumsy 1. A lot of weapons add in flat-footed or make targets prone or bleeding. They have a lot of different effects. And the flat-footed, as we pointed out, it's not that hard to get. You could just move into a flank to get it. But a spear makes them clumsy until the start of your next turn on a critical hit. And if you have a grievous rune on your spear, the effect lasts for 2 rounds. How about that for debuffing? Or if you're really good at rolling specific numbers on a D100, if that's your talent, a Rod of Wonder. If you roll an 85 through 87, you cover the target in nectar, making them clumsy 1. And then there are 2 ancestries that stand out here for debuffing armor class. Halflings again. They show how good they are at this kind of stuff. If you're a Jinx halfling, and I can really relate to that, it sounds bad, but this is kind of good. A Jinx halfling can never take the halfling luck feat, so that's kind of rough. But instead, you get a 2-action Jinx ability you can use once a day, making them roll a will save. If they fail, they become clumsy 1 for 1 minute, so a nice long duration there. And if they critically fail, they're clumsy 2 for a minute. The great thing about this halfling debuff is they get it right at first level, so it could be a really fun way to play around with this ability once a day. And goblins have a good one too. If you're a snow goblin, at level 9, you have this ability, Freeze It, with an exclamation point. That's how you know it's good. A single action athletics check versus a fort DC. If it's successful, the target is clumsy 1 for 1 round. If you critically succeed, it's clumsy 2 for 1 round. So it's a pretty good use of a single action, and once you get master athletics, you can target 2 creatures. So it's a nice use of a single action each round to throw it out there and debuff some enemies. And if all that for a snow goblin fighter or a monk in your party, it's pretty good one. And of course, there are spells that give the clumsy condition. The cleric, the sorcerer, and the druid, they each have a first level focus spell. An artistic cleric could drop a focus point on Splash of Art for a chance to make the target clumsy 1 or 2 on a failed will save. Or a first level hag sorcerer again has a chance to make them clumsy if dexterity is their best stat. And the druid has a first level focus debuff spell, maybe the best one of these 3, Tempest Surge. It's a basic reflex save, it does damage, and a failure makes them clumsy 2 for 1 round. All of these are good uses of a focus point for debuffing. 4 regular spells on the spell list. Here's a gem of a spell. I like this one. It's called Befuddle. It's on the Arcane spell list only. It is from the Gods of Magic Lost Omen book. It doesn't say what kind of save it is. I suppose it should be will save, but make it a player choice for fun. I don't know. It lasts a round, but even if they succeed on their save, they're still clumsy 1. And it could be clumsy 2 on a failure or clumsy 3 on a critical failure. So it's a good use of a first level spell slot there. And at spell level 3, Curse of Lost Time is on the Arcane, Occult, and Primal spell lists, which again makes them clumsy 1 for a round, even on a success, and the duration is 1 hour on a fail. There's also the spell Bestial Curse at spell level 4. It has more or less the same effect, clumsy 1. And at spell level 5, This is on only the occult spell list, but this is the granddaddy of debuffs. It adds a bunch of debuffs, including Clumsy 3, so that it's one real nasty debuff, real cool spell. But there's one more condition here with regard to status penalties to armor class. We talked about the condition fatigued, it was only -1. We talked about clumsy, it was a little better, -1 to -3. I suppose it could go to -4 if you could get them to clumsy 4 somehow. But then there's the big boy, the big bad boy, unconscious. It's a condition. This horrible condition is usually what happens when you drop to 0 hit points. It gives you the flat-footed condition, so there's your -2 circumstance penalty to AC, and it adds in a -4 status penalty to AC on top of that. Now, how do you get a monster to have this condition besides taking them to 0 hit points, which kind of defeats the purpose? Well, there are a couple of ways. Here are 2 ways. The first, the sleep spell. It's a first level spell, and for this very reason, it's pretty good. It's a 5-foot burst, so it could hit multiple targets. It's a will save, for whatever that's worth. Maybe that's good. Maybe you can catch 1 or 2 of them and get them to flub their save, and if they do, they're in a bad situation. Sure, they're going to wake up right away, but you get 1 hit with that super bonus. -2 circumstance penalty, -4 status penalty. It's a great first level spell for debuffing. I like this one. And second, a monk using that sleeper hold we talked about earlier. It's a single action. If they already have a monster grab, they use this single action, athletics check. And if they critically hit, instead of just hitting them and making them clumsy, they make them unconscious. So not bad. But there is one more penalty to armor class we can give. Circumstance bonuses, status penalties. Yeah, we got those. We understand those. But there's one more we can try and add in. We almost shouldn't speak of this knowledge because it's so forbidden, so unspeakable, but we're going to anyways. The icing on this beautiful debuffing cake we've been building, here it is, the untyped penalty. You have all your bonuses, you stacked in all your penalties, but you're just not satisfied. You want just one more penalty to give them just one more lowered armor class. That's where the untyped penalty comes in. It's untyped, so it will stack. The problem is it comes from some pretty weird places, and maybe, just maybe, we could get one to stick somehow. Here goes. Use this knowledge wisely. Raging gives a -1 penalty to armor class. Now, that one, how do you make a monster rage that doesn't want to rage? And on top of that, do you really want to fight a raging cobble boss or whatever? It might actually make it worse. But, so let's toss raging out the window. We don't want to mess with that. There is one, the one the scribes would write about you forever, this forbidden lore that adventurers would be wanting to speak of, the one the bards would sing tales of until their throats were dry, the bestial mutagen. It gives a -1 untyped penalty to armor class. It does give them some unarmed bonuses, but maybe those won't help if they're already fighting with the weapon. They're not going to drop it and start hitting you, and either way, it'd probably be about the same. The lesser version lasts a minute. It only costs 4 gold pieces. All of this seems like it could be favorable overall, a favorable way to add in a -1 to AC. The question is, how do you get them to drink it? And I already checked, the command spell doesn't allow you to command someone to drink something, so that's off the table. But if there is some way that you can come out to get your enemy to drink this potion, maybe have your thief swap in a potion if they're planning on drinking a potion, using some crazy sleight of hand technique. If you could roll some deception and trick them into drinking it, I don't know. But if you could figure out this way, keep it a secret, keep it safe, because you're now the caretaker of this forbidden lore. And that is it. Those are debuffing monster ACs with circumstance, i.e. flat-footed, and status bonuses, and the bonus we can never speak of again. This has been the Crunch McDabbles Show. I've been your host, Crunch McDabbles. Stock up on your status debuffs and win the day. The creature must make a DC 29 will save or take a -2 status penalty. But fatigued is minor leagues. It's only -1. So step up to the next level with the Clumsy condition. Clumsy affects dexterity, which affects armor class and reflex saves, and the penalty is the value of the Clumsy value. The penalty is the value, the penalty is the Clumsy value. The penalty is whatever the value of the Clumsy is. Bestial Curse at spell level 4 is the same as that. At spell level 5, on only of the cult list is the Granddaddy. It has a bunch. What the Christmas?